Oh, we have begun. Welcome, everybody. I see the conversation. I see Niagara Falls, huh? Welcome. I grew up there. Welcome. Thanks for tuning in. We're excited to show you guys ZBrush 2022, the next version that we have. Hello, everybody. I see everyone's chiming in. So my audio is jumping. We're good there. My video is good. We're all good vibes. So buckle up, as I always say. We're going to be going through a lot of items here. I want to give you guys as much information as I can about this version and the features that we've added into ZBrush. It's going to be a lot of fun for us. And there's a lot of things we've done too. I think with this version, just expanding upon things that we've also been developing in previous versions. So there's a lot of power, as always, that we're looking to do to add to ZBrush. So we're going to get going and jumping into this. I will do my best to keep an eye on the chat where I can, but I'll be focused also on just making sure I'm showing you guys everything. But I will do my best to keep an eye on the chat there as well. Okay, so let's get going. I want to get going into the stager. Okay, so I obviously have a new model here that I want to start using the stager on. So in particular, let's go to the back here. Let's look at, say, this piece right here. This piece right here. So I'll turn on the polyframe real quick. So what I want to do is start changing maybe different positions for this. And this is also one thing that the stager is good for, is I want to try maybe on the other side. So I can make a home stage, right? And then now I can move this along here. Now, one thing that I want to highlight, when I'm doing something like this and moving in another direction, obviously this thing is sitting on an angle. Okay, so you can see that's sitting on the angle. So something that would be important for all of you to know, I'm going to turn on polyframe so you guys can see what I'm doing here. All right, and I'll turn off dynamic subdiv. So these vertex points here, I'm going to hold the Alt key and click, and then you can see I'm moving my cursor around here, and then boom, I'm snapping, right? So this is now snapped. So you can see this arrow is actually snapped along the line of that mesh. And the reason why I'm bringing this up, okay, is that I'm going to want, when I move this, I want it to move along that angle that's already been established on this particular subtool, right? So that when I make my target state, and I'm going back and forth between the two, I know that I haven't done anything awkward with my angle. So it's a little fun tip for you guys. So what we've added here to the stager is an interpolation, right? So you guys have the ability to interpolate, and now I can have as many of those going across that I want. I can undo that, and I can even change the number here. So I can say I only want maybe 4, right, going across, and then now you have 4 going across. So the idea here is, you know, experimenting. I'm not sure yet, maybe even for this scenario, how many I want to have going across. Okay. Not only that is, if we undo our target state and we just probably shrink this a little bit. Yeah, there you go. Reestablish our target and interpolate. You can see it also will change in size. So the interpolation is going from the full original size that we stored in our home stage. Okay. And then over here, we have the ability where I shrunk it a little bit, and then the interpolation's happening in between them, right? So again, if we put more of these in there, so I go back to like say 10, then you're gonna get more of them, and you can see an interpolation starting to happen through there. Okay, so this is new within the home, the staging, is having the ability to do the interpolation. So what else is new and handy is, let's take our handy dandy demo soldier, okay? And I'm going to say I want a home stage, okay? And then I'm just going to move him just somewhere else, maybe, and even rotate him a little bit here. Again, I can rotate, I can move, I can scale, and I'm going to store a target. So what we have here now is the ability to copy, right? And then we're going to be able to paste. But I'm going to take this one more step further. I'm going to go into our plugins, and I'm going to go into Subtool Master. Okay, and in here, what we've added the ability to do is do visible, and you can see there's actually copy paste stager. Okay, so if I hit OK, it's actually went through all the subtools. Okay, and now not only do I have the ability to switch this guy, okay, if I down arrow key, I can switch this one. And now really also the big benefit of this is in the subtool palette, can actually tell it to all go to the target, all go home, right? So I'm creating this workflow where maybe you're trying to figure out where you want to put something, or maybe even a different pose, right? You have a T-pose and have a pose character. You can store those home and target stages, and now you guys have the ability to copy and paste those across the subtools and do it with one click. And then, like I said in here, do one click to go from target to home, right? So this just makes things a little bit more convenient for you to be able to go back and forth between, like I said, a pose or a non-pose, or maybe you want to put something in a different position within your scene. So really great way to work with that. Again, so once again, we've added in our stager, we've added an interpolation ability, and we've added a copy and paste. So for those that have been using stager, these are some nice additions for you, I'm sure, that you're going to really enjoy. Okay, so moving on, let me grab something else here. Let's grab this guy. Ah, yes, the truck. Right, another thing to help with just putting things together for us is our visible abilities here that we have now. We have a V1 through V8. Okay, so this is going to help you guys control what you want visible and maybe in certain scenarios, right? So you can see as I'm going through here, there's certain things now that are being turned off and certain things that are being turned on. Okay, so if we start from scratch here, we'll go to V2. And so how this works is you have all your subtools turned on first, or you don't have to first, but in this scenario, I just turned them all on. So because I'm in the V2, okay, which is your visibility sets, I'm going to say, what do I want visible in this, right? So then I just decide, okay, the only thing I want visible is maybe the upper part of the truck, and then that's it. Okay, and then it gives me the ability at any point in time here, I can go back to showing all subtools, then I can go back to just the visible truck, and then again I can switch, and then obviously I can store up to 8 of these, right? In this scenario, it's just only the tires that are visible. Keep in mind, obviously in that scenario, I had the body actually selected, right? So these are just swapped between your visibility. So it's just another way to help you organize things a little bit. I know sometimes when I'm working on something, I need to turn subtools on and off while I'm working. This will also work with folders, so you'll be able to use your folder systems with this as well, right? So nice little addition for us to be able to visually look at what we're wanting to do. Okay, let's continue on and looking at some sculpting brushes now. All right, so we've added a couple brushes here. So we're going to cover a couple of them. So there are the new scribe brushes. So there's a scribe chisel and a scribe standard. I'm a big fan of the scribe chisel, just because I also just like the chisel brush myself personally. I really enjoy using that, especially for hard surface stuff. Okay, so what this is going to allow you guys to do now is when you draw out a curve, you're going to get something cutting in the surface. Here, we'll go even up a little bit more. Let's make it a little bit more darker so you guys can see that a little bit better. Okay, so you're getting just swooping, nice model here, right? That has a nice respects. And then you can go with a bigger brush size if you want to, right? You can go with a smaller brush size if you want to, okay? And then have different results happening there based upon your brush size. And then what's happening here, though, is something that we've added to the stroke ability. So within the curves here, we've added the ability for you to do other things with this alpha that's stepping. Okay, so it's being controlled along the curve to allow different things to happen with this alpha. So by default, the alpha is going to be dropping wherever you see a black and a red transition. So, and I went really tiny here, probably went too small here. And what we have done is we've given you the ability between each one of those to drop the alpha even more. Okay, so by default, it's just going to drop one alpha at every time where you see a transitional red and black. And now what we've done is added you the ability to actually do a little bit more. And I've gone too small with my draw size. Oh, I went really tiny. So I might just restart. Hold on, sorry. I'm just going to close so we can just restart. I went too small. I got excited. Okay, so let me just launch again, and then I'll load my stuff. Talk amongst yourselves. Coffee talk, coffee talk. Neither here nor there. All right. 1 second, please. I gotta find, there you are. Okay, I'll load that file again. So again, this is a nice way to be able to, I found some good ways to use this for like creatures, but then again, this is also very nice for if you're doing something hard surface as well. You're gonna have a nice ability here. So it's just loading. My project's really big because I got a bunch of files loaded for the stream. So I wanted to have all those files already within this project. So give it a minute. It's a big file. Sorry about that. That's me getting excited. And we're loading, and we're loading. Okay. Okay, so again, once this loads, I'll show you guys what we're actually doing, and I'll show you the slider where this exists and what you can do with this slider and then changing things up for the slider. So let's go back to her again. Okay, and grabbing again the scribe chisel. Okay, so you can see this alpha is just a circular alpha, right? And again, this is going to work with any alpha that you want to, but in this case, I'm just using what is already here. Okay, so when you guys are doing strokes like this, you're going to have within the stroke palette, in your curves, there is now a new sub-steps slider. So by default, again, we're dropping an alpha, okay, between each one of where you see a red, black transitional portion, okay? And then this slider is saying, give me 25 more in between each one of them. That's why it was still calculating when I was doing the really small draw size, which was way too tiny. So this, if I drop it to 1, okay, and we just go like this, you'll see what's happening here. And this is going to work with the drag dot. So because I have the drag dot turned on, it's dropping an alpha on every dot, right? So that's what's happening here. Every dot is just getting that. And so by me saying, no, I want to add a couple more in there, even, you know, it's great to, you can manipulate and play with this. You can get very different types of styles within the stroke now that you weren't able to get before without this, right? So just trying different experimental things out. And let's not forget, you know, you can do a Z add as well, right? And have that surface be punched out. And of course, this brush by default has other things turned on. Okay, so I'm going to put it back to the 25. And within the curve modifiers, we've turned on the size, and we're using this graph. And that's why you're getting a taper on the ends, is this graph is giving me that control. So you guys can add whatever you want to this, of course, you know, and I can add another dots in here if I want to, and go something like this just to change some things up. Okay, and then now when we go in and make our strokes, okay, you're going to see I get tapering, starts getting wide, and then it gets a lot more wider in the middle than anywhere else. Okay, so that's what this is controlling, is something like that. So that's what these are doing for you. And again, I can delete these by clicking on the dot, dragging off, okay, and then click on the dot, drag off, and then they're deleted. And then since we're here, to change them from a harsh transition like this to more of a rounded transition like that, you guys just click on the dot, drag off, and drag back on. And then drag off and drag back on. And you can actually switch between. And you'll know which dot is actually classified as a harsh transition, because you notice this one doesn't have the big yellow circle around it. And then when I do this, see, it's got the big yellow circle around it. So this is allowing you to even transition between the dots, rolling off in essence. What is this from this dot to this dot, and then this to this? Okay, so just a little extra fun-filled facts for you. Okay, so it comes in really handy and is a nice way to be able to work with it. Okay, so let's continue moving on. Let's take the demo soldier again. He's our friend, right? And I'm going to, we'll make sure he's selected. I'm going to throw on my gizmo. Okay, and let's put him again up here in the top, right? So when we're working with our gizmo, okay, we have obviously the ability to move, rotate, and scale, okay? And everything's staying nice and conform to what the original meshes, what you guys are now going to be able to do is in the focal shift, you'll see now the transpose are defaulted to a -100. Okay, that's because if I start making this go past any -100, it's going to be used more of, I like to call it kind of like a deformer, right? So now you can actually deform your mesh, kind of like I am using the gizmo deformers in a little bit. And this is allowing me to do kind of like, as you can see, the transitioning, the bottom is not really here. We'll go to solo mode. Nothing's really happening here. It's all happening up on the top. Now we're talking. Okay, so when you guys now, if you're in the transpose and you change your focal shift, we're going to give you ability to do different things with it. So like you can see the higher I go, see now it's only the head being adjusted, right? And if you go to a negative value, then you're back to, see, having that adjustment. So again, if you're keeping it -100, it's going to be normal. Okay, but anything now after that is going to give you a different result. And then you can throw on your actual multi-selector, i.e. the pizza boxes, and you guys can even use that. So if I throw this on now and I can start doing this, you can see all the other subtools are also being affected with this. Okay, so if you grab, say, something like this, you want to come over here and you can see what that's doing. And then you can even turn on symmetry, throw on a little local symmetry there, okay? And then saying, okay, I want to mess around with that. And then you can have this kind of thing happening. So there's a lot of ways to use this. I found this useful even just doing like a little bit of a mask, okay? And then positioning this gizmo where I want something like that, and then using these to kind of deform, right? Because it's going to. So if I turn this off, now it's just only the finger. Okay, so I found that to be fun and useful to use these for as well. So you can start manipulating the finger because now I've got more of a soft transition happening with the gizmo itself. Okay, so there you go. So there's some fun there for you all. Again, it's all the gizmos are going to be defaulted to -100 now because there's obviously 3 of them that ship with ZBrush: your transpose, transpose cloth, and transpose smart. All right, so good way to have some fun and style some stuff for sure. Okay, moving on. Let's grab this guy. All right, some of you might recognize him. So I've made this model, right? And I started working on it. And now in this scenario, right, I'm just going to solo this out. So we're just looking at the body right now. And we'll just switch the brushes. And looking at this, this is a model, right, that is somewhat dense. It's 1.3 million. It's not crazy dense, but there's some density here. And here, we'll turn off lines for now. So you can see there's a polygroup here and there's a polygroup there. And what I want to do is I want to add a bevel here. Okay, so this has been where some of our challenges have been, adding bevels. For low polygonal things, we can definitely use things like ZModeler and, you know, manipulate the surface that way. But when it came to something like this, where I've got some, it's a little bit more density to it, or in that case, taking something that has already live Boolean results on it, which has different type of topology as well. So you have triangles, you have quads. In this case, we do have triangles and quads, and it's a Dynamesh. So what we've added is an ability for us to use something we call Bevel Pro. So in the subtool palette, there's going to be now a Bevel Pro button here. And I'm going to click on this, and this is going to launch another application for us. And then this application does use your video card. Okay, so this will use your video card. Is not using OpenGL though. It's using Vulkan. So for those of you need to check your video cards, because you have a very old video card, you'll want to check first and see if your video card can support something like Vulkan. Okay, so this is now what it's doing is giving me an area where I want to actually bevel. Okay, and in this scenario, I'm throwing an extra added issue in here. And my extra issue is that this is a Dynamesh, right? So the transition between this polygroup and this polygroup are not the cleanest. So as an example, you can see when I get up close, this is just really rough looking right now. And the reason is the geometry is rough around those edges. So what we've done is we've taken what's inside of ZBrush, which we have a polish by groups. So I'm just going to polish this off, right? To just create a nice little polish here on the surface. And so you can see what this is doing is recalculating and figuring out, okay, you want me to polish this surface with inside Bevel Pro and then still give you a beveling surface. So what this is showing us right now is where you guys are seeing kind of the pink. That's actually a surface that's being generated and created that's going to give us a bevel. So I'm going to do is I'm going to knock down my offset here a little bit so you guys can also see the other dots in here. So I'll zoom in closer now. All right, so this is your bevel amount offset. Okay, so this is saying the mesh that's being created, how, in essence, thick is this going to be? Because this Bevel Pro is actually going to use live booleans to either give us a result or not give us the result. And you'll see what I mean by that. So in essence, a destructive or a non-destructive way. So the first thing we have, what's nice about this is that bevel is kind of really small. And when I can see what my bevel is by the red dots, okay, and then the blue dots are your polygrouping. So the blue dots represent where my polygroups are changing. And the red dots are where the bevel is going to start and end, in essence, right, along those. So what I might want to change is my bevel amount. So I can grab a slider here and change my bevel amount to have a completely different result if I want. Okay, so let's do 1. Okay, and so what this is going to do is make a larger bevel. So the benefit of Bevel Pro is I can change things on the fly, right? So now you can really see how big that bevel is going to be. Right? This is going to be a really large bevel, right? And then this is a great example of seeing, this is what you guys, when you guys get this in your hands, this is why we made this in this way. So I wanted to have the ability to change my bevel on the fly, but then I needed to kind of see, is that working or is that not working? So right now, you'll see that that pink color is not solid everywhere. Okay, so that's telling me that the mesh that's being made to create the bevel is not actually thick enough. So this is where, again, this mesh offset. So what you guys, all you would need to do is just up this slider until you see, in this case, all pink, right? Or a pinkish red tone, right? And then that is now the bevel that I'm going to get. So this is showing me a quick way to change things within the bevel. And if I even want to see what is this going to look like, I can hit auto apply. And now what this is doing is actually applying the bevel within Bevel Pro. And then you can see what that looks like right now. And then even though I have auto apply on, I can change my mind and go, you know, 1 is a little too much for the bevel. Let's go 0.5. Again, it's going to reanalyze and looking at the mesh again and going, okay, well, I see you want to have a smaller bevel. Let me go reanalyze that, figure that out. And then it's going to, because I have auto apply on, give me the applied result. And I would say that's more of where I would want to live, an example for this model. Okay, so and then now I have this. So to reiterate this, if I turn on preview edges, you can see the geometry that's being created in Bevel Pro for us. Right? And I can even change the resolution of this and have less spans going through the geometry or more. There's a reason for all this. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to just send this back now to ZBrush. Okay, so I've got auto apply. So when I hit OK, it just comes back. And then there you go. I have the result within ZBrush. And you can see it even gets a new polygroup for us. Right? And then you can see the geometry that was created by Bevel Pro. And like I said, it's using live Boolean, so there only will be triangles where there's some intersecting points. Okay, so this creates a very nice way to throw bevels on something that might be, you know, a little bit more dense for us, right? So let's see, as an example, let's see, I have another one in here. Here you go. Okay, so you go something like this guy, same thing here, right? So I have this model, okay? This has some results already on it, okay? So again, Bevel Pro is going to use live Booleans, okay, to give us our results. Or, like I said, non-destructively, I can actually just get the mesh that live Boolean is creating. So here's what's important about this. Because I have polygroups everywhere else, I want to be able to control maybe where the bevel's going to go. In the last scenario, I just had only the 2 polygroups. In this scenario, there are a lot more polygroups. So I can tell ZBrush to, hey, like take something like this, right? And we can unmask, right? So I'll blur it a little bit more so you guys can see everything else is masked, but this section right in here. So you guys can actually use masking to tell Bevel Pro what to work on and what not to work on, in essence, to create the bevel. So you can see in this scenario, the bevel is now only happening along this outer edge, and the rest of this isn't being touched at all. And so you have a masking ability to do this. And then once again, if I want a little bit like this, I want a little bit bigger bevel, I can figure it out, right? So I can change and adjust my bevel amount to go at this and then say that that's what I want. Really look at it, say auto apply, and then I can see what that looks like. Now, this is what I like to call a destructive way, in the sense that we're going to apply it to the surface. So you're doing something to the surface. You're destroying the surface in a good way. We're making a bevel. But if I don't want to do that, I want to do auto apply off, and then I hit OK. What ZBrush is going to do is send over the mesh, actually. And right now I'm in solo mode. So right below, you can see the mesh that was actually generated. So if we arrow down, there is the mesh that's generated from Bevel Pro. And we did this because also there are now other things that maybe I could even do to this mesh and have some more fun with this mesh, right? There's nothing stopping me from switching to something like QMesh, right? And ZModeler, and then we'll do a little poly loop, right? And then just change the surface in essence, okay? So by us having the ability to do this, okay, I can bring in the mesh or not, and then now this mesh is going to be applied, right, to this, and then I could use live booleans right with inside of ZBrush to start applying it. So you can see this is the one side, and then there's the other side, right? And because I have the ability to do either destructive or non-destructive, this opens up other pieces for me. And this is a great example of this piece might have subdivision levels, and I don't want to lose my subdivision levels, so I wouldn't have that auto apply on, right? And then you can see when I turn live booleans off what we are getting, right? So just another example for you guys to go ahead and work in different ways, right? So again, Bevel Pro is going to be a great way to use for more dense of a mesh, right? So we sent 1.3, and I think this one was what, 500? 500, yeah, almost 500,000. So that's where Bevel Pro is its strength, and that's where it's going to be. Low polygonal, you want to use things like ZModeler, of course, and we have those tools. So we want to expand upon this and keep going along. So, all right, let's keep moving along here. We got a lot of stuff that we want to cover. All right, so I'm going to grab my handy dandy star, okay, and let's dock something else over here. Let's dock our draw palette, being here, and I'm going to import a model. Let me grab my mouse. Let's go. And I'm going to import an FBX here. All right. So give me a second. I got to get to that file. And where are you? There you are. Okay. And here we go. So what I'm doing is importing an FBX. And our FBXs are importing cameras as it is right now, but we've added some other ability here. And what we added is image importing as well with the camera. So in this scenario, okay, this model is courtesy of our friends at 3dscanstore.com. So they did photogrammetry with this, right? They had that person and they had their rigs all set up. So these are some of the cameras from the actual photogrammetry, so that I have the exact angles of the camera. And not only that, I've got obviously the photos that the photogrammetry is taking, okay? So thank you again to our friends at 3D Scan Store for giving us this model to show this to you all. So this is what it's going to do, is add more elements to the bottom of our draw palette. Okay, so right now what you guys have available to you is ability to bring in different cameras that I can select. And you'll see as I select these, the images are also changing the background. So what we've added now is a section down here for images where you can load your own images, you can store them, and you can delete them. But I can even swap between, and in essence, I'm making the model transparent now so that I can really see through the model to the image, because this is going to be handy if you're going in and out and say you need to match even a model to an image. This is a great way to do that as well. It's like a combination of some things that we have. So if I switch to something like move, right, and then I'm grabbing the model, I'll see, I can see, oh, this is off. I need to move that back into place. So you can toggle off the transparency, or you guys can just control that however you want with this slider. So in essence, our FBX now is going to allow you to import images, but not only that, because we've added that, you guys can now store multiple camera angles and then have multiple images. Me personally, I know there's an old plugin in the texture palette, okay, that some people use. This one I think can replace it because it can hold more cameras and more images, right? So there's a hold up to about 64 cameras, and which means it can hold 64 images. And then you would save this within your project. So, but if you're in another program, you've already lined up images and models, as long as that FBX can support, okay, all that, then you can bring all that into ZBrush now. So very cool way to be able to go at this and be able to work with this, okay? So there you go, another way for FBX. So let's continue on moving through our models and through our stuff here. So let me grab this guy now, and I'm going to put the model up all the way. Okay, and I'm going to, we don't need that image anymore. Okay, so I've got something like this. All right, and I want to be able to manipulate and start adding a little bit more to this little capsule here, let's say, this little part right here. Okay. And this model is courtesy of Michael Poplovich. So thank you, sir. I'm going to turn off my quick saves, and might as well turn off my screensaver right now. So this is a model, right, that I want to be able to start doing some more to this. Okay, so I'm going to just switch to our standard brush. I'm going to undock the draw palette, and let's dock now our brush palette, right? And I'm going to grab an alpha. Let's grab, let's grab this, okay? So now, obviously, when we're sculpting, I'm going to go Z sub, okay? So we're going to start pushing in to this surface, right? And just start sculpting at this surface. So obviously, we've got this alpha that is allowing me to manipulate this and maybe add some kind of little damaging element in here in this, right? But I want to spice this up a little bit. So what we've added now is in the alpha and texture, we've added the ability for you guys to have 2 alphas, not just 1, right? So I can actually, besides have this alpha selected, I can come here and select a completely different alpha, okay? And depending on my pressure sensitivity, I can switch between the 2, right? And I can even have some more fun with this one. I'm going to go and let's go to modifiers and let's throw some streaks on this even too. Let's have a little bit more fun with this and a little bit more density, something like this. So now I've got, an alpha, right? That is this when I'm really light with my pressure sensitive. When I'm harsh, I'm getting more this alpha. Okay. So you can see I can really have a different combination of things coming here, right? So there's a lot of really fun ways to start using this, right? So just start damaging that thing up, even to the point of I found it really nice to use this in conjunction with thick skin, right? So if we go to our thick skin and I turn on our thick skin, so now that I have that, I'm going to load another brush that I found very fun to work with for me. There's a brush that I made that I'm calling it relatively the same thing that I just did, except it's on a clay. I'm doing clay buildup, and I found this really nice to be able to kind of just chunk in. And then this is what I mean by having thick skin. As you guys can see, it stops at a certain point, right? And then, of course, you can add up and build up and cut in, add up, build up, right? So as I push harder, see, it's just really switching to almost like it's chiseling away at it. If I go light, it's more of like scraping away, right? So this is where I found this brush extremely useful, especially for someone like this. It would make sense if this guy's got his claws up here to start adding some streaks in here. And then maybe he's at some point gone a little harsh up in here, right? So we'll go a little bit darker so you guys can see that a little bit better, right? So this is really nice to be able to just transition through these. And so I found thick skin to be a very fun thing to start manipulating and using with this. Okay, so you have a double alpha, but more than that, you also have color. Okay, so let's fill this with just this color that we have right now. So I'm gonna go color, fill object. Okay, so I'm going to throw on some gradient. I can say I want red for that color, and then let's do like a blue, right? So now I can even get color gradients through here. So I'm just using the color to manipulate this. Okay, so obviously it might be something different, right? You might want to do this. Maybe it's a very dark color, and then maybe, you know, maybe this was painted something, right? And so now, right, you can have a little bit of gradient happening through there to start transitioning things happening, okay, which is really nice. But not only just having just the ability to do color, right, like this, okay, we also have texturing. So if I want to say, let's grab something like the brown and then let's grab a green, okay, I can now, instead of using the colors, I'm using the textures, right? So this is now, with me, again, it's all pressure sensitive. By me lightly going at this, I'm getting this alpha with this texture. By me pushing hard, I'm getting now more this texture with this alpha. And then you guys have complete control of that, right? So let's go to like a plane so you guys can see this also now a little bit better. And let's make that a poly mesh. And I'll get rid of this texture for the time being. And let's fill it with some white. There we go. And we'll go back to this texture and I'll divide up some. So now you can see I'm building up on my surface. And if I push harder, I'm getting something like that, right? So I can, this in essence, this can be digging in more of like a hole. And then this is like, think about like environments, right? So this could be a simple environment piece now where I've got my grass up here, but then I have trenches. And then I don't need to switch to a different brush. I just have to push harder. And then I'll get that trenching. So you're going to have also transitional points here. Each one of these have a graph. So obviously, if I start going this way more, this alpha becomes now the main dominant alpha. Okay, if I come more this direction, then it's more this alpha. So even when I'm light, you're going to get more of also this. So you're getting transitional items, right? So again, if I'm going, this way gives this alpha, this way is giving this alpha. Okay, so now I have this, and then see if I'm pushing hard, you can transition not only with that, but you can also with the color as well. Now, the thing to keep in mind, because we're using pressure sensitivity, remember the brush that you're going to load also has pressure sensitivity to it. All right. So what I mean by that is up in here in your brush palette, you can see there's also graphs here, and you can see RGB has pressure sensitivity itself built into just the brush. Okay, so this, don't forget about this, because you might want to even manipulate that and just have this be a little bit different. So you can, this is very different now. I'm pushing hard. See, now it's just pretty much that darker brownish texture. Now that I'm pushing hard, I'm not getting any of the green, right? And then light is only green. Okay, by default, when this was like this, I had an ability to kind of have a transition between the two by my pressure sensitivity as well. Okay, so there's a lot of different things that you can do with this, and load another brush that I had a lot of fun. I like to call it like oil painting brush, because it really started looking like oil paint, especially when I started throwing colors on this, right? So if I start throwing this, and then let's grab just a different blue in here and throw on a gradient now, right? When I started really, it gave me, back in the day when I used to do some kind of oil paintings at all, it's what it reminded me of, right? So I'll undo, and we'll go a little bit smaller, right? So you have a very nice, the harder I push, see some of that blue is coming through now, the harder I push. And then if I'm lighter, it's grabbing more of that, right? So, and then of course, you can make this have a texture on it. So having the ability of having two alphas now and two textures on a brush has really opened up a lot of new brushes, and since it's added to our brush system for sure. All right, so let's continue moving along. Let's go back to, I got to find that guy again. Let's go back to that column, okay? And let's go to having just the white color here, no gradient, okay? So something that I also want to be able to do is, which has been big for me, is alignments when I'm working inside a ZBrush. So as an example, these plates here, okay, you can see they're actually separate subtools. And in this case, they're not aligned correct at all, right? So I want to look at all of these plates and find one and go, okay, this one's kind of sitting in the right position that I have here. Okay, so if we open this up, this has got all these subtools in here right now. And in particular, these plates are within one folder. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to tell ZBrush, let's go ahead and do a transpose set. What that does is with our little handy dandy multi-subtool selection, i.e. the boxes, right? So what this has done now is focused only on the plates, and then the creature, and then the main column is actually and it's not hidden, it's just not selected, right? And now what I'm going to be able to do is I'm going to come down in here again, and I'm going to open up my align. So you have now 6 ways to align, and this is going to work across, in this case, multiple subtools. Okay, so I have these, and again, the one selected was this one right here. That's purple right now, okay? And so what I can do is I can tell how do I want it to align. I'm going to say bottom edges, and then you can see they all now aligned along the bottom edges. And I'm doing this because this one is sitting in the right spot. So I like that bottom edge, and I want all of them to have that same line. So I hit bottom edge. There we go. And of course, you guys have all the other options. You can also do by center, right? You could do by top edge, okay? And then you have, obviously, your horizontal center, and then to the left, where they're all, and to the right. So they'll all align based upon that, okay? So this opens up, I can have folders, I can use subtools, and use this multi-selection ability. What this also is going to help me with, besides doing this, if we look at another scenario here, like this one, okay, where I don't have any folders, okay, and everything's at different heights, especially let's say I want to start rendering this out, right? I'm going to throw my floor grid on, and you can see my floor grid. What the floor grid by default does is snaps to the lowest subtool. In this case, it's this little brick down here. All right, and now I have these blocks selected, which this is a model from my main man, Mr. Joseph Dress, back in the day when we did 4R8. This is something he made for 4R8, but I thought, again, it's a great example. So the idea here is I've got no folder this time, and I have this. This block is selected. So in essence, that is the subtool that's going to be used for the alignment. So all I want to come down here to do is tell it the line based upon that bottom edges, right? And because all the other subtools are on, they all align. So if I turn off perspective, you can see now in the floor grid is right there. And then this is why this is important for us, of course, is when we're doing this, I want to be able to render and have them actually be sitting on the floor when I go and render, right? Because I don't want things floating if this is going to look like it's sitting in some kind of scene. That becomes important for me to be able to do that. Okay, so you have the ability to just go through your subtools that are visible. You have the ability to use multi-selection. You also we'll go back to this guy, all right? And this time, let's take the folder pieces, okay? And let's come in here and let's merge folder, okay? And then what this is going to do is take all of these and make them one subtool. So here I'll go to solo mode. So you can see now they're all one subtool. So the alignment will even work in this scenario. Okay, so if I now tell it to align this subtool all along the centers, right? You can see it's using all subtools. So if I want to, I can say solo, and now let's align in the center, and then unsolo. Okay, and then now you have those plates back where I need them. So it works also on a single mesh. Okay, so you can use it this way, or you can use it across multiple subtools. And I've just shown you guys 2 scenarios, either with using the folder with our little multi-selection ability, or not using it, right? So it can come in really, really handy to be able to have this, okay? So there you go. So another way for you guys to align things. Now, something else that we added is let me grab now this column. Let's say something like this. All right. And let's say I'm going to start copying this column. So I'm going to put one like maybe here, and then I'll make another one here. And again, I'm just holding the control key and to make copies of this. So let's say something like this. Okay. So this is obviously all one subtool right now. And I've made now a design change decision, and I want all these now to distribute and be the same distance. So also what we've added within the subtools, right below alignment, there's also a distribute. So I can now look at this subtool and tell it to redistribute, right? So this mesh has multiple pieces in it, okay? So something like this, I'm going to want to now say, okay, let's go ahead and Dynamesh this all. So in our Dynamesh, right, if we turn this on, right, it'll Dynamesh everything for us at the resolution that's selected. But now what you guys can do is through here, I can click and drag, and it'll pick the resolution. So if I come up to the cube, so you can see my resolution is changing, right? So there's 8, which is not going to work, right? And then here is all different resolutions. So you can actually set your resolution by looking at a part of the model that you're happy with, where the density is nice, and then that's the resolution will be set to. So you can use either the slider to do that, or this is where we added this little picker button here. It does the exact same thing. Okay, so if we go to a model with a little bit more substance to it, this one here, okay? Let's go here where it's got a couple different scenarios again here too. So if I want to Dynamesh this all together now, and I'm not sure, I could do, okay, well, this resolution, to have something this dense, I would need that resolution. Or do I want to go that dense? Or do I want to go this dense, right? So I'm going 72, 344, or 27. And then that's it. I find my resolution, and then I Dynamesh it, okay? And so you guys now will have the ability to pick what resolution do you actually want to Dynamesh with, okay? And there you go, you're done. So in this scenario, I want to do a redistributing, but I want to I want all of this to have the same Dynamesh resolution. So I just use that resolution picker. There we go. And now once again, if I'm now going to make the copies of this, okay? And again, I'm going to make them on purpose be not perfectly distributed. Okay, something like that. Okay, so even with all this Dynameshing pieces, come back to our subtools. We're going to come along here and then just redistribute it, and now they're all redistributed in line. Okay, so there is some great additions in that way, where I wanted to be able to have a resolution control now by your mesh. I would recommend, this is from my mind immediately went to, I'm going to make a subtool that has even just different meshes with different resolutions, and then I can use that as, in essence, as my picker. Like, that's where my head's going right now for something like this. So, but I know a lot of you we're all using Dynamesh on a regular basis. So there you go. There you have it. All right. So let's continue on, and let's keep going down the path here. So I'm just going to, let's grab this. All right. I'm going to turn this into, let's turn this into a cube. Right? Yeah, that's enough. We'll go with that. And we'll divide this up a little bit, give this a little bit of resolution. Okay, once again, we wanted to keep adding to the brush system that we have here. So I'm going to, once again, dock this. Let's go ahead, and for the sake of alpha, let's not have our streaks on anymore. Okay, and then I'm going to select my clay buildup, right? Okay, so we have something like this where we've got an alpha, okay? And then we have this ability to sculpt wherever I want. But I want a little bit more than just an alpha. Okay, I don't want to just have an alpha that's even just one image or anything like that. I want to go a little bit more with this. So I want to start using surface noise. Right? So I can turn on noise. And in this case, I can say, let's scale up the default noise. Let's even play with that noise a little bit. Aha, the little thing I was talking to you guys about, understanding this system here. Being able to change this and make this be, I'll go a little bit more harsh. So I'll go a little bit more like a concrete feel. A little something more like that, maybe. Yeah, there. Oh, yeah, there. Yeah, there. Looks good. Okay, so what I can do now is I'm sculpting on clay buildup, right, with this, right? So now I've got a combination of an alpha and a noise. Of course, I can turn off the alpha, and now I'm just sculpting with this, right? And cutting into the surface. And this is just using a 3D noise everywhere. And as you see, as I move around the block, I can keep having that noise being reapplied wherever I want. It's not using an alpha now. It's using the 3D noise. Okay, now, when we do this and we start, let's go in here, and we start using either the noise plugin, okay, as an example, or in this case, I'm going to bring in an alpha because I know a lot of you tend to use alphas for this, for sure, right? So I'm going to bring in an alpha. Let's see. Let me grab my, oops, wrong one. Here you go. So I'm just going to, in essence, grab the alpha that's even inside of ZBrush. Okay. And here, I'll up the strength a little bit so you guys can start seeing. And then, of course, we're mixing right now, right? I'm mixing the noise. So I'm getting this noise with this noise. And so I'm going to change that to be something more like the min. I think min is the way to go. Yeah. So what's happening here is, see, this noise here, right, is going in all the crevices of between this one. So when I hit OK, okay, you guys can start sculpting, but you can see this could happen, right? So if I go to the front, though, it's good. But if I now switch to the side, it's no good. Or the top, it's no good. So in this scenario, the only thing, and I'm going to switch to Z sub, the only thing that's working for me is if I'm looking at, let's say, the front, or if I go to the back. Okay, and so this isn't working. So what we've done is added our ability to do a local projection mode, because an image is only a 2D projection. It doesn't have the ability to kind of be changing in this sense and moving around our surface here. So now when I start to sculpt with this, I can do this, and then now I can actually rotate and do the same exact, no matter where I go, I can start getting that same noise and really start quickly sculpting up some beautiful little brick, right? That's really from a noise, right? So I can start manipulating this in different locations. Now, the other thing that we added to this is the ability to have a dynamic scale. So what does that mean to you guys? That means it's using the draw size. It's looking at the draw size and dynamically allowing the scale of the noise to change by the draw size. So what I mean by that is, here, we'll go bigger, right? So you can see this is what we get. If I now switch to the other side and let's go with a smaller draw size, so you'll get smaller, okay? And then if I go again even smaller, then I get smaller bricks, right? Surface. So in essence, your draw size is going to allow me to change on the fly. How big do I really want some of this happening on the surface, right? So again, the other thing too that comes into play with this is I'm using a tablet, right? So there's pressure sensitivity involved. So I can also use pressure sensitivity. So not only can I use my draw size, so I'm not going to change my draw size. So this is light. And then if I go harsh, you can see I can completely change, and then now light. So I can kind of transition into different sizes here just by not even changing my draw size now, just by just doing that, right? So we go back to, I'm sorry, Michael, but we're gonna go back to destroying this thing again, right? So what this opens up for me is, if I got a model like this, right, I can start going like this and saying, okay, that doesn't work. Okay, I'm gonna go with a smaller draw size now and just start adding this element all over this little pillar that Michael has sculpted. Sorry, Mike, if you're watching. Okay, and here we'll turn off the color so it's a little bit better to see for you guys too. Okay, and we'll turn off, let's turn off, we also have thick skin, don't forget. So let's turn that off. There you are. Let's turn off that thick skin, right? So you guys can see really, and then I can go somewhere else, make bigger bricks, make smaller bricks. You really can start doing a lot of manipulation, right? So now that's really all dinged up and banged up. Okay, so also with this, I'm going to go back to the cube now, okay, just because it's a visually easier probably for you guys also to understand, is there's also a slider, which is your base scale. Okay, so see this as a multiplier to now the draw size. Okay, so in this scenario now, my draw size is at 386, right? So this is what I get if I just kind of go medium pressure, right? And so this is with a scale of 5. If I drop this down to say something like 2, right, you can see everything smaller. Okay, so this in essence is a multiplier. In essence, when I go apply, you know, you got to be looking at this, how much larger of a scale do I want to the brush size? Okay, that's what that slider's controlling. So now let's think about this. We've got an ability to add surface noise. We got the ability to allow that surface noise, in essence, have projection based upon where our brush is located in wherever I'm going to go sculpt on. Then I have the ability to use pressure sensitivity to change the size of that. And now I've got the draw size also with your scale slider, right? So it just, again, opens up more brushes for us all to be able to use, okay? Modern art is right. I'm feeling the modern art for sure. Okay, so there you go. There you have it. Now, moving on. Let's go ahead and look at our demo soldier again. You gotta look at the demo soldier. So what we've also added to our deformations, I've used these a lot. I especially love my inflate. I'm a big fan of the inflate. And of course, you guys have the ability to say inflate, and then I can say repeat to other, and it does it to all other subtools. But what we've also added, we keep using this gizmo to add things for us. And in particular, I'm using, again, the selection sets. Okay, so this is a multi-selection subtool. So I'm just going to select out the subtools that I want to have control over. So I just did that by just doing selection. So again, holding down Control-Shift and dragging over whatever's in the green box, stays selected. You can also hold down Control-Shift and then just tap, right? And that now those are deselected. If I hold down Control-Shift and tap, they're now selected, okay? And so what does this do for us? Now, if we went and did this inflate, it's happening to the demo body. And now if I hit repeat to other, it only happens to the subtools that are currently within this multi-selection. Okay, so we keep adding elements to this multi-selection. I just showed you guys how to use it with alignment. It'll use for distribution as well. It's using for subtools, sizing, scale. Now we're adding more things for even in the deformation ability. All right, so this is nice to be able to do things like this. Okay, and I'm a person that uses this inflate quite a bit, and it'll use for many of these actions. Right, so I'm going to let's undo that because I'm going to want to use him later on again. I'm going to use my demo soldier as much as I can. All right, so let's continue on. Let's go back to this plane. Let's get rid of what I sculpted on here. Okay, and we're going to switch to the standard brush. All right. And so right now I've got an alpha on this, right? So we'll go Z add, right? And then this alpha has got a squared. And again, I'm using this streaks. Okay. I'm going to keep it on. It looks cool. So what we now have is we've added is in the interpolate area. Okay. You guys, we gave it interpolate the last version, but we've added more power to this. Okay, so I'm going to dock this again as well. All right, so we're going to get rid of my brush palette. We don't need that. Stroke, and then, okay, so what does, for those that don't know even what this does, let me first show you what does this even do, right? Okay, so what this is going to allow us to do is I can make a stroke here, and then I can make a completely different stroke here, and then I can interpolate, right? And then now ZBrush is going to interpolate through those strokes. Okay, so started a little bit more straight, and then it starts getting a little wonky, right? So this is kind of like what the stager where we started this whole stream with tonight. So what I can do is obviously control, same thing. I can say how many of those do I want in between, all right? So you can also, for that matter, we can even add color into this. So if I throw now color in this, we can now, right, paint with a blue, and then let's go ahead and let's do a green and a squiggly green even. All right. And then now if I interpolate, it even now interpolates your color. So the version that you guys have now does not do this. So you can see there's a nice gradient happening through here now with our colors. Okay. And we didn't end there. So if I now here, let's go with a larger brush stroke here. And let's go with a blue and a tinier brush stroke here and do something like this. okay? And then I interpolate. You can see even the brush stroke is even changing for us, okay? So this is now starting with a larger draw size, and then this is a smaller draw size, and now interpolate will even appreciate that. It will also respect your intensity. So let's go pretty high, and we'll go with a big brush size. We'll go blue now, and let's go green again. Let's go way less intensity, okay? And we'll go a smaller brush size and do something like that. And then here we'll go back up to 10 on the interpolation, and then interpolate. And then you can see we're getting that gradient. We're getting a size change, and you look from this view, we are also getting an intensity change, right? Which is very nice. So, as an, not this, sorry, well, I clicked on the wrong model. Okay, as an example, sorry, not the one I want right now. Okay, we are going to, let me grab this guy. Here we go, this guy, okay? So this is a model. This is not my model, for sure. This model is courtesy of Pablo Munoz. So Pablo, thank you for throwing this at me so I can use it. Sorry that I'm going to butcher this a little bit, probably. Okay, so Pablo, thank you for sharing this. Okay, so we have this model. He's got a beautiful render of this. He's got it all colored in texture. But let's go to, say, something like this shield. All right, and I want to start doing something else to this shield, okay? And it's just a subtool that we have within here, okay? So I want to start doing a little bit of what we were just doing, okay? So I'm going to switch to actually my chisel. I'm a big fan of my chisel brush. Let's go with this. Let's go ahead and fill it with color this way, right? And then now let's grab, say, some kind of nice blue. And I'm going to say maybe a little bit smaller brush size. And I'm going to knock down the lazy mouse radius a little bit. I'm going to put it at 25. And I'm just going to start doing something like this. Yes. There you go. Right? And then let's switch to a completely different color. Let's go a little bit smaller. Let's just go half the size. Okay, and then now I'm just going to stroke right along this part of the shield. And again, I'm using lazy mouse with the lazy radius to kind of just keep my stroke a little bit more clean. Oh, my tab, I'm used to using a Cintiq, right? And then now I can interpolate that, right? So I can say, give me 4 of those and then interpolate, right? And let ZBrush figure out that transition for me of going for this squiggly into more, starting something that needs to fit a little bit more the shape of this shield, right? And then because of, just for sake, I added color in there. Okay? So now you have this ability to make completely 2 different strokes and have a nice transitional, and that'll fit, right? It's a great way to do this. You know, with that said, too, this also opens up another thing for me for something else. Let's take, say, as an example, this guy, all right? And looking at this chest, right, we want to start putting patterns on this. We've also added some new pattern brushes, right? So these are actually taking advantage of the new ability with surface noise, okay? So again, in the brush palette, this is taking on surface noise. And what I can do is just start looking at this and just start sculpting this wherever I want. Right? So getting this noise wherever I want it to go is a nice ability, right? So I can grab my shoulder plates, let's say something like this, and then just start putting that noise, right, wherever I want it. Okay, and then grabbing, say, something like this and putting, let's see, yeah, putting that noise, say only, I want it only on this purple part, right? So then I would come in here. This has got right now dynamic subdiv turned on, so I apply that, and then now this part's the only part that I really care about, right? So looking from above and then apply that noise, right? So this has been a really nice way for me to be able to put noise where I want it, right? So just another example of using this combination with things like this, right? Just adding to the brush system that we already have. Okay, so continuing on. Let's now select this bad boy. Okay, this model, this one's courtesy of Mr. James Cain. So James, thank you for sharing this amazing model with us. Okay, so this is what we have. All right, so he's got this beautiful piece, right, of these soldiers, right? And now what I want to do is put these soldiers on the subtool that looks like that coin looking circular piece. Okay, so now I'm going to come here to the subtools. Okay, and you can see there's a coin here. All right, and so now I'm going to come down here, and now there is a project a bas relief. So all I have to do is tell ZBrush, take that subtools that you see and project them into the selected subtool. So in this case, the selected subtool is that piece. Okay? And so now I've got this nice bas relief with, obviously there's a lot of controls here that we can manipulate this. But what we've also done is something that's really nice to be able to do. This is a great way to look at this. Something else we've added is some new masking options. So in this case, I've got this, and you guys can see what that did, okay, with that projection of the character. And guys, remember, that's a serious scene. That's not small, okay? What I want to do now is mask by the normals. Okay, so I'm just going to now have this position straight ahead. Okay, and I'm going to say mask by normals. Okay, and what that has done now is mask the normals that are not facing the camera. Okay, so this is now using the gizmo. I can even now manipulate this, and you can see you can actually mask, and I can even push out and do a little bit more pushing of this. Okay, so that now has a mask by the normals again. So and it's going to be camera dependent. So that's why I look straight at it. So if I inverse this, right, only the normals along here, right, are being masked out, or anywhere else within this bas relief that's happening. And again, we just took this model from anywhere, right? So to simplify this, okay, again, it's just to simplify visually, we got this rhino, right? And you can see this rhino's on a completely different angle. You know, trying to make that be a kind of relief would be more of like, I'd have to do something like this, maybe, and then start squishing it. Some of you, I'm sure, have wanting to do this, right? So you can see some of the challenges that you'll run into. So now all you guys have to do is select that subtool that I want. Okay, I'm going to go to the subtools once again, and then I'm going to say, let's go ahead and put projection of that rhino in the coin in this case, right? And then I can even go and say, how about let's just even change that rhino's position and just put it somewhere else, maybe something more like that. Okay, and then now come back to this and let's project that in. Okay, and then now that gets projected into that point. So it's nice being able to have this ability to project in, but we didn't stop there. Okay, that's not where we ended. Okay, we also have the ability, let's grab another model. Let's grab something like this and not out of solo mode. Okay, so this is just some kind of little space satellite thing here that I made. Okay, so let me turn that off. All right, so this is just something that I want to put on the model. So I'm going to say, let's go to the standard brush. I'm going to turn the alpha off like this. Okay, and now what I want to actually do is, instead of an alpha like that, I want an alpha of this. But I don't want just an alpha. I want a bas relief alpha. Okay, so I'm going to throw a little bit of contrast in this too. And I'm going to say make bas relief. All right, and what this is doing is making an actual alpha that I can apply to anything else that I want, right? So now I can even come to say something like this and say, hey, this needs to be put because on here, and then I'm going to say a negative 100 focal shift, and I can even put that model on itself if I want, right? So this you can grab, in essence, anything you want, okay, to be able to do this. And then I can even adjust this even after the fact if I want to as well. All right, and let me turn off the other alpha that I have on this model right now, because remember I did this. Okay, so now I just draw that out and then use adjust last, and you guys can even change it to negative, positive. You can do whatever you want with that, right? So we can grab anything. If we wanted to go back to this model from James, okay, I don't even have to do the projection part, right? We can just say don't even have those other pieces and just have this. Now, what this is using is your document space and your camera, right? So however large this is in the document, okay, and what your document actual pixel rate is what you're going to get, right? So again, your document, this is going to create a 1482 by 920 because I'm working a really small resolution right now, okay? So then obviously this is as simple as then going to the alpha, right? And then make a bas relief. And then now all this is doing is picking that up as a bas relief. And then here, we'll go to a cylinder this time. And let's make that a polymesh. We'll divide that up. Okay, we'll get into at least a couple min. We'll go negative. And then now you just draw it out. Like, come on. Nice. Right? And then again, maybe I want to adjust it a little bit more, make that pop a little bit more. And so this showing that you can put this around along rounded surface. So a lot of armor. Think about armor, medieval knights, things like that, right? Think about like even this guy that I have, right? So if I have like this piece and I want to put this on here, right, at the center of that chest, I can. Right? Do something like that. Okay, and now that's on his chest. Right? And then let's not forget, you can just do a masking, right? And inverse it, and then that's only going to go in that area right there. Okay? So there's just so many things that this is going to open up for us, right? Not only that, here, let's load something else. Okay, let's load, just because he's seen almost every stream we do, let's load Mr. Earthquake. Okay? So Mr. Earthquake has polypaint, but he also can have a texture, right? Because he's got UVs. So you can even pick up your color information. So what I mean by that is if I come over here into the alpha, there's an option right here. It says B texture. So this is grab bas relief texture as well. So if I come here now to this and I say make the bas relief, now I'm not only going to get an alpha, I'm getting a texture. And what does that do for us? Again, let's go, because it just was fun having the cylinder again. Let's go ahead and divide that up. Okay, and then now draw this out. See, there's no texture. So let's go ahead and fill it first with a color. So let's just fill it with some white. And let's grab that texture again, turn on that RGB, and then there you go. Right, and then there's some rendering options. Let me turn off some rendering options here. We don't want wax, and so there you go. Right, and now you have the ability to draw out, okay, and with color or without color if you want. Okay, and you have the controls, all these controls within this. They're the same whether you're in the subtool menu or you're within the alpha menu. You've got a repeat, a contrast, a tolerance, and a blurring radius. So the repeat, in essence, is the algorithm. How many times do you want to run the algorithm? Okay, the contrast is giving more of like a darker darks to whiter whites, less grayscale, in essence, like what a contrast does. Your tolerance is the tolerance between the grayscale points. So if there is a large gap between the 2 points, that slider, this tolerance slider here, will put in filler grayscale, in essence. Anything higher than 0.2 of a gap, we'll put in filler in there, so it keeps a nice transition. And then your blur radius is blurring the edges, right? Because if I turn off this blur radius completely, make bas relief now. Okay, so it made it. We'll go back to that cylinder, beep, and draw that out. Okay, the difference will be along here. So see along the here. Well, let's go up even more in subdivision levels. Let's go up one more level. Okay, So right along here, and we'll turn the color off, you can see this isn't being as smooth as it was if I switch to the other alpha. So if we switch to this alpha, right, you can see the transition smoothing. So here we'll go, I need to go a little bit darker for you guys. Okay? So I'm like armor, like, right? I'm sure you guys had boop, 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 boop. Okay? Now, doing the projection, and I love where the question just came up. It does not do a mask, but you already have a feature that will do it for you. Okay? You already have a feature that question, I got to show it. That question came up. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to show it. It's going to take me a minute to reload that model, but darn it, I'm going to show it. I saw the question and we're bringing it in. Let's see where you are. Hold on, I got to bring in the model again because I've wiped the board. Where did you go? Oh. Sorry, I'm looking for that model again. And all right, I'm just going to go this way with it. Hold on. Sorry, I'm loading. I need to load a project, not a tool. All right, so I'm going to load that bas relief model from James Cain one. And that was a great question that just came up about, well, what about a masking from it? The bas relief projection isn't going to make a mask, but that doesn't mean you can't get the mask from that. You 100% can. Okay, so let me load that model. Let me show you that really quick. And then this is perfect segue because I was about to go into another new masking option that we have as well. So this is going to be a great segue for us to go into masking. Okay. So the projection is going to work on whatever the surface is, right? So whatever your selected subtool is, it's going to work on it. Okay. So let's have this again, right? So, and in fact, I think this is even curved. This is curved, right? So this isn't flat. The part that I'm projecting into is actually flat. It's not like a perfectly flat surface. All right. So I'm going to look at it this way, and then we'll say, okay, let's go ahead and put a projection into this. Okay. So again, subtool, project bas relief. I'm going to even throw this time some contrast in this one, and let's project it. Okay. So now this has this projection. In masking, we added in the last version, mask changed points. So if you click that, there's your mask. So you just mask the changed points. Okay. So this, if we inverse it, you can see, right, the masked area that wasn't changed is now masked, and the area that, right, was changed is now masked. And then you have an ability, this has got a little bit of a gradient happening to it. Okay, so again, if I scale this a little bit, right, or we move, here, let's move it this way so you guys can see, right? However, you can also open up this little dot, right, and mask changed points this way instead, right? And then in fact, we can even go back as far as using our undo history, right, and make a controlled point there, okay, and then tell it to mask change points based upon that undo history as well. Okay, so it is possible to what you just asked. Okay, now what also been added, okay, masking wise, here we'll switch it up. Let's go with the dig, okay, is there is now also, besides a mask by normals, there's a mask by depth. So again, this is looking at the position of the DAW. We'll turn perspective off so you guys can just visually see it better. Let me switch to a little bit different material. There we go. I'll make it a little bit brighter. So now if I mask by depth, okay, it's looking at what is the closest to us right now, okay? So in essence, that dog head is the closest, and this is not. So if I even inverse this mask, right, you can see, right, what kind of masking I'm getting now. Now, to really visually understand that, let's go ahead and let's change this up a little bit. Let's go and pick a red color. Let's fill that with some red. We don't need any of this anymore. Okay, and let's go ahead now and do the mask by depth. And let's pick a completely different color and fill that. And then you guys can see the math, right? You can see the bluest part is what was, right, available to me because it wasn't masked. And then the red wasn't getting changed because it was masked. And then we get a transition happening because there's a nice gradient happening within the mask. And then you guys can control all of that, of course, right? So then here you've got these graphs, so you can control all of this however you want, okay? So let me turn off the paint so you guys can see. So now, see, really only the nose, see, was getting masked. So I can inverse it, and if I do this, see, there's only now really, see this front part. Yeah. Right? But you can see, you can make some cool deformation changes here, okay? So you can use this, in essence, to control your mask. And obviously, if I go the opposite direction, it's going to do, this is completely opposite, right? Yeah, you can see mostly everything is masked, okay? And then you can see only the back part. And so if I verse this, see, a little bit. Okay, so you have a depth ability and you have binormal. So like even if I grab this, this is another great one to see this on. I think it'll help visually. So I mask by depth. You can see the head's darker than the neck and the rest of the body. See if I've inversed that mask, okay? And then if we see, you guys can see that now. So now you have the ability to mask by depth. You have the ability to mask by our normals. And then, of course, I just showed again masked by changed points, which was actually added to the last version. All right. So that's a lot being added into it. So this is for version 2022. Okay. So to recap, we've got additions and interpolate. We've added interpolate to our actual subtool. We've got a lot of subtool additions, right? We have a projection bas relief. We've got alignments. We've got distributing. We now have Bevel Pro, okay? So there's just in the subtool palette alone, there was a lot of stuff added for us in here, right? Okay. So this is nice to have all this. You have your visibility, okay? You've got within the stager in geometry, you've got the interpolation being added. We even added more power to interpolate itself within your strokes. So it'll now appreciate your colors, your draw sizes, this change in size, your intensity. We've added and moved in our brush system more. We've added the ability for you guys to have 2 alphas and 2 textures on any brush. We've added the ability for the surface noise ability to be a local projection by brush location, right? So we added FBX ability to import and support imagery, which means also the draw palette can support images now within save and stored cameras. We've added abilities within our multi-selection to use alignment, use distribute, use the deformations. All now can appreciate the selection. So don't forget about the Dynamesh picker is also another big one for us all. Okay, so there's a lot added, okay? And I can already see it. I've already saw it. When is this version available? Okay, well, this is version 2022. We just released 2021.7, like, I don't think, what, in August? So 2022 is going to be available now. You can go get this version right now. You can get a free upgrade for all you registered users. It is available right now. I saw somebody, I think, already has it in this. Okay? So these are all the updates they have. There's no updates to Fiber Mesh. This is available to you guys right now. It's a free upgrade. You cannot use the upgrader, though. This is a full version, okay? So you got to go get the full installer. So when you guys install this, you are now going to have a ZBrush 2022 in your program files for Pixologic folder within Windows, and obviously applications folder within the Macintosh side, okay? So you got to go get the full installer. So you log into your My Licenses page, and you go get that full installer, okay? So I'm going to go to it again. If you guys want to as well, I'm going to go to a page. If you want to keep learning more about this as we go here, I'm going to launch into our web pages. Okay, so if you go to a ZBrush, okay, so already your information's here that you guys can start getting for ZBrush 2022. Sadan This is one of Sadan's amazing pieces where he had like these awesome 4 horsemen, and we turned it into a bas relief. And it's just fun grabbing your old models and seeing what you can do. So happy holidays. We are giving you guys 2022 now. It's available to you. Again, you're going to need to do a full installer. The patch will not work. Oh my goodness. I forgot about one thing here though. Holy moly. Yo, man, what am I doing? This is a big one for us all. Oh, come on. Right? So before you guys go, we've also added in our knives, we now have a knife circle, right? And a knife rectangle. And then these also will obviously work symmetrically. So I can now switch to not only have what you guys have already currently had, which is the lasso and the curve, you guys can actually be able to do this, okay? So now I have all this ability, and I can even do something like this, and yeah, and then I like to use a little bit of camera manipulation, do this, and boom, there you go. Just create some kind of crazy piece, like just using only those 2 brushes. Like this is fun to be able to do. So it's just the same thing, the knives that you guys had. You just got knife circle and knife squared. And yes, again, this is a free upgrade. So if you're a registered user of ZBrush, you're getting 2022 for free. Okay? So no, it does not punch a hole through. You're going to have to use other things to punch a hole through, like i.e. live booleans. There's other things that'll punch a hole. That can't punch a hole through. No. All right. So here is the web page. If you guys want more information, this stream is going to be available to you guys to rewatch as well. So there's the page that I'm on in the chat. Again, you got to go to my licenses to get the full installer so you guys can take advantage of all this stuff that I've been showing today. Okay, and then there's also one other thing that I didn't show. You guys are all also now going to get XMD. So you guys will have the ability, if you go to XMD's webpage, their base now toolbox is be given to you guys with brushes. So you guys also within now the file menu, there'll be an open XMD toolbox. Okay, and that'll allow you guys to open XMD's toolbox. So you're going to want to go and get that as well. There are several, over 100 free brushes in there and alphas that you guys can go get now as well. But that's a separate entity. You got to go download that as well to have that. Okay. So we have a list here of what's new and a bunch of other things that we've added. So this is a great place for you guys to go and check things out. And then of course, there's always the wonderful ZBrush Central, right? That you guys can go to. And then there'll be information here as well. And we've got upcoming streams next week. We've got a stream happening where it's going to be a group stream, that what we've done with previously at the summit, where we had a bunch of our ZBrush live streamers. I'm going to join them in those streams. So we'll be I'll be using 2022, and we'll be making stuff with the newer version. Also, my colleague Daisuke, will be doing a stream in Asian time in North American time next Thursday. And then also we'll be having another stream following that on the 30th. So to learn about that, if you go to ZBrushLive.com, you can learn about any upcoming streams, because obviously from here on out, you guys are still going to want more information on 2022. So you'd want to see when are we streaming next. So again, the calendar in ZBrush Live is where you want to go. Okay. And on the 23rd, we're going to be having a ZBrush Live multi-stream with several artists. Again, I'll be joining them for this. So you've got one on the 23rd, so you can get reminded here for that. And then we also are doing one on the 30th with a group of artists. And then as far as North American time, my colleague, Mr. Daisuke, is going to be showing stuff in 2022, 3 a.m. my time in LA, but in Asia market or in the Asia world, it'll be in their time zone. Okay, so you have all that as well. So that's it. Go get 2022 right now. Log into your My License pages. Get that download. Again, don't worry about 2021. It's going to install a completely different folder system. And since you're already activated it's going to be automatically activated as long as you're activated. And once again, this is a free upgrade for anybody that is a registered user. All right. So hopefully you guys had a lot of fun. You guys took away a lot of stuff. I thank you for tuning in. It was a blast. I'll see you all on the internet and in other streams. Again, I'm Paul Gaboury with Pixologic. You've been watching a stream on ZBrush 2022, the release. And I'm